Sun is about 400 times further away from us than the Moon. And it's also about 400 times bigger than the Moon. This strange cosmic coincidence means that both appear the same size in our sky, and is also the reason we get lunar and solar eclipses. The Moon's orbit of the Earth is on a slightly different plane to the Earth's orbit of the Sun. This is why eclipses are much less common than you might imagine. We get a lunar eclipse when the Earth passes between the Moon and the Sun, preventing the Sun's light from hitting the Moon. A lunar eclipse can only occur at full moon, when the Moon is directly opposite the Sun in the sky. Their frequency varies, but we get a total lunar eclipse roughly once every 18 months, and they usually last for about an hour or more. We get a solar eclipse when the Moon blocks the Sun's light from hitting the Earth. A solar eclipse can only occur when there's a new moon, and whilst these also vary in frequency, we get a total solar eclipse about once every 18 months. These last for between 2 and 7 minutes. A lunar eclipse is visible from anywhere on the night side of the Earth, but a solar eclipse is only visible from less than 1% of the Earth, along a thin path drawn by the Moon's shadow. A lunar eclipse is completely safe to watch, but whilst a solar eclipse is much more spectacular, it should never be looked at without protective eyewear. It begins with the Moon taking a small bite out of the western edge of the Sun. The light fades very rapidly as we approach totality, the phase where the Moon totally covers the Sun. Birds can become confused and go to roost, and plants close up for the night. As the final rays of sunlight disappear, we get a beautiful diamond ring effect. Before the Sun's spectacular corona, its ghostly outer atmosphere reveals itself around the edges of the Moon. A few minutes later, the Sun begins to re-emerge. And it's all over. The sunrise heralds the dawn of a new day. As the Earth spins, one side of the planet now faces the Sun, and the activity of a new day begins. Spinning on its axis, the Earth completes a full rotation every 24 hours. Whilst we cannot feel it, this means the equator spins at just over 1,000 miles per hour. But the speed at the poles is almost zero. While we face the Sun and have daytime, the opposite side of the Earth is in darkness, but the constant spinning of the Earth means this will soon be reversed. This is what makes night and day. During the day, the Sun is always there, even if we can't see it behind the clouds. On a clear day, when the Moon is in the right position, we can see it too. As dusk approaches and the Sun sets, it appears to drop out of the sky. But the Sun isn't really moving. It's an illusion caused by the Earth's rotation. It's nighttime. This side of the Earth is facing away from the Sun, and it's now dark. Providing there are no clouds, we can see the Moon and the various constellations of stars. The stars are like our Sun and generate their own light. But the Moon has no natural light. It's lit by the Sun, reflecting off its barren surface. Similar to the Sun during the day, the Moon appears to move across the sky, but it's the spinning of the Earth that creates this illusion. The Earth takes 24 hours to do a full rotation, and come back to its original position in front of the sun. This is the length of one day. The Moon takes approximately 28 days to orbit the Earth, and it also takes about 28 days to spin once on its axis. Because of this synchronicity, the same side of the Moon always faces the Earth. The other side of the Moon, the side which we never see from Earth, is commonly known as the dark side of the Moon. The first images of the dark side of the Moon were taken by the unmanned Russian probe Lunar 3 in 1959. But it wasn't until 1968, at the height of the space race, that the American crew of Apollo 8 prepared to embark on the first manned mission to circumnavigate the Moon.
2, 1, 0. We have liftoff. Liftoff at 7:51 a.m. Eastern Standard.
At the outset of the mission, no one really knew what to expect as the astronauts journeyed where man had never been before. At Mission Control, all they could do was wait and watch as, on Christmas Eve 1968, Apollo 8 dropped into lunar orbit and headed for the dark side of the Moon.
Apollo 8. Okay, Apollo 8 is go. You're riding the best bird we can find. We'll see you on the other side.
As they passed behind the Moon, no radio signals could be sent or received, and they lost all contact with Earth. Never before had humans been so isolated. No one knew exactly what would happen to the spacecraft on the dark side of the Moon. Mission Control held its breath, but after a nervous 40 minutes, the astronauts finally resumed contact.
Apollo 8, Houston. Apollo 8, Houston. Apollo 8, over. Hello, Apollo 8. Loud and clear.
Command Module pilot James Lovell described what no human had laid eyes on before.
Okay, Houston. The Moon is essentially gray. No color. Looks like plaster of Paris. I think that each one of us carries his own impression of what he's seen today. I know my own impression is that it's a vast, lonely, forbidding expanse of nothing. And it certainly would not appear to be a very inviting place to live or work.
As they continued round the dark and desolate Moon, a vivid and familiar sight appeared on the horizon. And the astronauts of Apollo 8 could once again lay eyes on their home.
And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good Earth.